Hello, welcome to the VCU Autism Center for Excellence Lunch and Learn series. It's sponsored by Virginia Department of Education. Well, not just a series, but VCU ACE. But before we get started, I want to introduce myself. I'm Vicki Brooke, and I'm going to be joined today by Teresa Cogar, Stacy Carr, and Terry Blankenship, and we're going to help make this just a smooth machine for everybody. Before we get started, though, we have some housekeeping, as always. First, want to let you know that this, just even by registering, well, we wanted to record this session. There's 175 people who are participating, who have registered, and we know things happen. They may not be able to log in, or during the session, Lord knows, all heck could break loose and you have to log out. So we've taken the sessions and we've posted them to our website. So what we'll do is during the chat section, we will remove any kind of identifying information, but we want to include the chat or that information, which are, you know, questions, ideas that really enrich the whole session and make that part of the final transcript. So that'll be on our website, and it probably takes a day or so to get that done. Okay, so we're going to move into our content here. It's funny, well, not so funny, that most days if we were talking about transition, we would be talking about that transition from maybe kindergarten to K, or maybe third grade to fourth grade, or elementary school to middle school, or middle to high. Maybe even from high school to post-secondary or work, all those major milestones in a student's life. But because of COVID-19, the big elephant in the room, we're going to be talking about the transition from, actually from school to home. So really, you know, I guess this is not a controversial statement. Children need structure in order to thrive. And one of the easiest ways to add structure to their life and really is to create a daily schedule or some kind of routine that's really is beneficial for children as well as adults. But it can be particularly helpful for young kids with ASD.
Yes.
We'll talk later about taking those schedules and writing them down and developing sort of a visual schedule or a support. But let's talk about some of the other benefits. A schedule can be easily understood and kind of provides a semblance of continuity that can potentially reduce frustration for a young person with ASD, as well as for ourselves. So if your household is used to getting up at 7 o'clock, taking a shower, getting dressed, eating breakfast, and sitting in your seat at school by 9 o'clock, you'd want to keep some of that same kind of rhythm or pattern. I know for myself, when I started working from home, when all of this started, I had to adjust to, I know all my ACE colleagues have told me to work from my laptop, but I had this big old clunky computer in my office. I like working with that big old clunky computer. And I like to be at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not a good sleeper, so sometimes I'm there at 7:30. But keeping that same kind of rhythm and pattern. So I moved to the front of the house, and by, well, not always at 8 o'clock, maybe 8:30. I'm sitting in my seat here ready to go to work. But there was a comfort for me to keep that kind of routine. Another benefit is just that whole idea of not knowing what is next. It can be a huge source of anxiety for kids. Even if the routine is consistent, they still worry about this. With a schedule, they can really start anticipating what is next. Knowing the sequence can start building, you know, the basis of independence. I don't have to ask. I don't have to keep saying over and over. I feel good about myself that I have that information. And I'm really starting to build the basis for self-determination. Uncertainty can cause major stress for kids with ASD, which is really stemming from not having a full understanding of how the world works. And sometimes something as simple as a routine or schedule can provide a much needed stability. who knows, maybe as we're helping to kind of develop and using these routines and schedules, we're going to really start developing maybe some executive functioning skills like time management or organization, and which really we know is an important skill for student life and adult life. Teresa, do you have anything to add to that, or do you want to talk about supports?
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. I totally agree with you. I think routines are so important. And as we've moved in this time as well, I know that I've kept my routine. My routine is getting up at 4:30 just because I don't sleep as well and never have in the past couple of years. But yeah, I still get up at 4:30 every morning and have a morning routine that I do and get to work right away as well, just because it's helped me maintain it's helped me decrease my anxiety, like you said, and some of those other things, even my own self-determination, having that motivation to keep going every day, getting my work done and knowing that I've put in that day's work and then I'll still have time to do things later. And just, again, keeping that a semblance of my schedule and routine and having some flexibility within that routine that we definitely want to talk about just help support, like you said, our emotional regulation, our self-determination, and definitely just our anxiety, especially during this time when we all display maybe anxiety in a different way. These things really help us. So I'd like to talk about additional supports because if you are currently putting a schedule at home into place around your new routine, some things that help with that are things like first then boards and choice boards. And we're going to talk about some of these additional supports. Probably many of you have said to your son or daughter, first we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. First we're going to go to the grocery store, then you can have ice cream. I know that with my 3-year-old niece, I find myself doing those sort of things all the time. And so often for our kids with autism spectrum disorder, primarily being visual learners, it's really important that we provide those visual supports in addition to the schedule to help them know what is coming next. Vicki made a great point with that. I myself am always, I know my schedule for today, but I'm constantly looking at it to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. For instance, after this meeting, I've already made myself a first then. First, I'm going to do this meeting, and then I'm going to go get McDonald's, which isn't really good. But for whatever reason, maybe it's the stress, I've been kind of craving McDonald's during this time. So I'm going to give myself that little bit of not so good reinforcement. And then I'm going to go on to the next thing in my schedule. But I know that I've set that self up for myself, today, so that I know what is coming next. I can, again, help with my emotional regulation and decrease that anxiety. So here's just a few examples. Again, using whatever communication mode style that your son or daughter uses. So perhaps they're at a level where they're using pictures. You may want to take pictures around the house. Maybe that's in your current visual schedule of the pictures of the things they need to do that day. But then you can certainly transpose that to a first then as well. So you see a picture here of some snacks, which is much healthier than my McDonald's. And you can see that first, we're going to wash our hands, which Carol and Lauren, our colleagues last week, did a great job of talking about hygiene and how important that is. So first, we're going to wash our hands, and then we're going to eat our snack. And as parents and as teachers, right, we have other colleagues on this call, we often say that verbally, but again, promoting that independence piece that Vicki talked about earlier, we want to be sure we're putting supports in place so that when we give them that verbal cue, we can go ahead and move on into this visual cue, and then they can start doing it by themselves. So that's really the point, and the visual supports really help with that. There's just so many ways that we can do this. Technology is great. And there's so many apps out there for Android and Apple, and perhaps another time we'll have a lunch and learn on that. But you can just see here's just a simple app. And I have this website at the end I'll talk to you about, where it's just a simple first then, right? You can put a schedule. Many of us use our phones for schedules. And again, just using technology that promotes independence, and it promotes inclusion also, right? If we're out in the community, I could have my information on the phone and that's very helpful to promote that in the community. Talking about special interests, many of our folks have special interests. Again, my little niece who doesn't have ASD, I speak about her a lot. She loves Peppa Pig, and I found this first then. And what I love is that you can incorporate special interests in anything they do. And it's really cool to have that in these additional supports, because Peppa Pig is there, and you can put first we're going to do this, first we're going to make our bed, then we're going to eat breakfast, and then we can play with our friends, that sort of thing. Or maybe not friends right now in COVID, but our friends at home. And so again, just looking at these different things, these first then boards build that sequencing that Vicki was talking about, continue to just, again, build the time on task, and just help them understand what's going on. Vicki, do you have anything additional?
No, I love some of these that look really kind of fancy, but we could kind of do it with our own phone.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
take pictures of, regular household items and then print them out.
Absolutely. And, Vicki make a great point, because absolutely, like in that first picture, definitely print them out. You can put them on an index card. You can just put them on anything. And the great thing about Google in the age of the internet, right, is if you Google first then board, there's a lot that you can't print off for free. Actually, the one on the bottom, I know this Peppa Pig. So if you needed that sort of structure as well, you could do that. One last thing I just want to mention that I forgot about first then boards is you can see on the top right hand corner where it says first do math, then writing, and then the computer. You often want to start with that less preferred item. So I know for me, actually, math is pretty much a less preferred activity. I don't do so well at it. And then I'm going to follow that by writing, which may be a more preferred activity. And then I'm definitely going to end that with what motivates me, that computer. And again, if you are looking for what motivates and reinforces your individual, I definitely talk to folks who are familiar with preference assessments and reinforcement inventories, because I often sometimes hear, well, there's nothing that motivates my child. And I will tell you, there's something to motivate anybody and everybody. And we want to find what that is and increase that. Anything else, Vicki?
No, I think we're ready to.
Okay, great. So just some other ideas. A long time ago, I learned from a mentor of mine that choice is power. And I truly, truly believe that. And one of the things that we can do with transition is provide choice. So once you move into whatever's on your schedule, and maybe you need that break. So maybe you are doing math. It's time to do that math that your teacher sent you this week. Then what am I going to do after that? Am I going to go right to the next thing on my schedule, or do I need a break in between? And we have to be cognizant of that with our children, especially during this time, as we build in this new routine, especially at home. And what does that look like? So if you have just a break card, maybe you have first, write, and then break, you might want to provide some options for what that break looks like. Again, reducing that anxiety, letting them know what comes next, and building that self-determination and making choices. So here are some things I can choose. Up in the right-hand corner with the bubbles and the watercolors, again, this is Melissa's preferences of things she likes to do. So I give her choice. I don't know about you, but if somebody gives me a choice of something I'd rather do rather than just telling me, I'm more motivated to do it. And so that's just helpful and reinforcing to our folks. Again, sensory, many of our, myself included, and our folks that we work with and your child may need to take a break. To walk upstairs, do a crab walk, get a drink of water, just take some deep breaths, and then return to learning, or whatever task that they're doing at home. Maybe it's a chore or something you've asked them to do. So again, providing that choice and empowering them to be self-determined in what they do is really, really pretty powerful. We don't have to do it all, right? We can give them some autonomy. So here are two things, just a disclaimer. Neither Vicki nor I work for Time Timer or Staples or any of the other things that we've talked about on here, but I do want to show you two things that I found recently. I'm always the teacher, so I think these are pretty cool. The first one that you can see in the upper left-hand corner, for those of you who know about Time Timer, I have the link at the end of this chat, but Time Timer is a great tool for all individuals, and for individuals with autism, it helps them see, right? Time sometimes is often amiss. We don't know where that time goes. And so this helps us see how much time has passed. And so often with transitions, it's really great if you're, even when you have that preferred item of on the computer, how much time am I going to have on that computer before I have to move to the next thing? Again, so that helps to transition. And one of the things I found from Time Timer, and I actually ordered it for myself, if you have the larger Time Timer, you can actually change the face out. And you can see here are the blank faces that you can put in. And then they have these pictures, right? So these resemble a lot of the picture icons that many of our students use, PEX, Boardmaker, those sort of things, and they have them in there. What I really love about this is you can put the pictures around the clock. And there's great pictures on here, from cleaning room, brushing your hair, bathtub, to exercise. And I think it would be really neat to have those around this clock like they have, and how many minutes you have to do the activity before you go to the next. So just another way to transition your son or daughter in everyday activities you're doing at home. And another thing that I found was the tool.
Teresa, does Time Timer have a free app?
Yes, thank you. I was going to say that. Thanks, Vicki. During this time, during COVID, Time Timer, and if you go to timetimer.com, and I have the link at the end of the slide, on your phone, and that's one of the things I have next, you can actually get the app for free at this time, so which is great. So these things, no, but the app, definitely, yeah. So it's great to have just on your phone. And then the last thing is this little dry erase board. It was great now because this is universal design. They're advertising this at Staples for all folks, not just folks with different abilities. You put the timer in here and you've got a dry erase board. So you can write your schedule or your mini schedule on your dry erase board, set how many minutes you have to do that, and then mark it off as you go. So again, another great way to self-monitor, manage your own behavior. And like Vicki said, building those executive functioning skills. So just quickly, some everyday items, and Vicki already mentioned it. If you have a phone, you can get the Time Timer app for free. You can get, you can, any kind of timer, there's a stopwatch app out there. There's all kinds of apps. Just an everyday kitchen timer, right? From Walmart or the Dollar Tree. This is the good old Sunbeam one that a lot of folks have, but there's also ones with the digital numbers, right? And again, what works for your child. Some of the ticking may bother them, so that's why we use Time Timer, or we might even use a stand timer. But again, just those everyday things we have at home to help with the transition of how much longer do I have to do this, which is what so many of us struggle with. A little whale, right? If you're it's a young child's time for bathtub, right? And it's time for a bath, and you say time for a bath, they kind of cower away. You can show the visual, right? You can do a first then, but you also have a transition objects. So transition objects, again, help reduce that anxiety. Think about those of us who may have had a stuffed animal or a blanket that we walked around with for a long time as a young child. That blanket and those kind of things brought us that comfort that Vicki talked about at the beginning and reduce that anxiety. So again, using a transition object, is very helpful from going to one place to another. And then, just something, again, using special interests. Perhaps your son or daughter is really into Harry Potter. Again, just having that book next to them as they're completing maybe that math assignment, knowing that this is what they're going to do next. Having that transition object, again, is very helpful. Anything else, Vicki, on that?
Oh, that looks great.
So we just have a few tips, and then we're going to chat in just a moment.
So we've been talking about helping young people with ASD kind of transition times ahead of time. We know that for many of our kids with ASD, they struggle with disengaging from the current task, switching their attention to the new task, and then re-engaging attention to the new task. Factors such as hyperfocus, sensory overload, following a sequence, and even understanding how steps relate all play a part in the difficulty of turning off attention from one task and transitioning to a next. Those are all the reasons why we need to incorporate the visual schedules that Teresa talked about, the first this, then approach, or using a transition object to make a positive experience for everybody involved. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was that Teresa kind of focused on that I think is really important is including those activities of interest and how you mix them into the routine. So maybe there's blocks that of time that you have to do the math or spelling or language, but in between those other blocks, they could pick activities that they're really interested in. So you're moving, as Teresa was saying, from a have-to activity to a high-interest activity. This is really going to reduce tension and really promote learning. Other tips, Teresa?
Yeah, again, just that. Thanks, Vicki. That the power of choice making. Like I said, when my mentor a long time ago told me, choice is power. That's just a phrase that I've never forgotten, because it truly is true. And oftentimes with folks with varying abilities, we make the choices for them, and so it's really important for us, even early on, when it may be hard for us to give that autonomy to them. We truly do. We really do have to start having them make their own choices, just to better their quality of life in general. So we talked about those sensory or movement breaks, and again, just sometimes we just need a brain break. I mean, I'm sure all of you, like us, are on Zoom after Zoom after Zoom. And I know yesterday, Vicki and I were in meetings all day, and we actually talked to each other in the afternoon, and we just needed a brain break. We just needed to talk to a minute just about nothing, flowers, going to nurseries, planting flowers. We just needed that break, and creating a sense of mindfulness. I mean, especially during this time, this is something I've had to do, is just take a moment. For me, listening to relaxing music is really starting to help me. Before I have a big meeting or something to do, I might just want to take a minute to be mindful of my surroundings and what I'm doing. And our folks with ASD, it's really important for them to do that too, especially as our minds are racing all of the time with all the competing factors we have going on. It's just really important to take that time. So anything else, Vicki, on those?
No, I think that's great. I think these are a lot of really great resources to share.
So again, these are just a few resources. We could certainly, if you contacted ACE, we could certainly be happy to send you other resources. But just some of the ones we've talked about again today is that time timer. They do have a website where you can get some of those things. Again, there's places like Staples. I even saw Oriental Trading is now selling time timers. So it's just really cool. And they actually have different colors. So that's cool. This is just a free app, right? timeanddate.com. It has a stopwatch timer and then a digital timer. So again, knowing what works for the individual you're working with. Good Karma Applications, has, again, those schedules that you can build at first then. And then there's one called, my thing is in the way. Is it B? Can you see it, Vicki? I can't see it. My bar is in the way. Be Well.
Be Visual.
Be Visual. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you. Be Visual. And so again, we're not promoting anything. We're just giving you some ideas. There are free things out there, and we can certainly help you find those as well. So we're going to move into the live chat, and we really appreciate your time. One of the things we're going to do after the live chat, just so you know, is we do have a poll that we'd like it to just take real quickly. So we'll make sure we put in time for that. But we'd love to, we're so glad you're here. Thanks again for being here. We'd love to take your questions and just have a chat with you. And we hope you have found this information helpful.
Do we have any questions in the room, Stace?
Yep, there's one. Are you going to email those links out to everybody?
Well, actually, the links will be recorded as part of the session. We could, we certainly can post them on the website.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are a lot of great ideas that people are sharing. And do you happen to know the link for the First Then board? First Then Now board? Teresa?
No, I don't, but I could certainly find a specific link, but I do know if you actually just put in Google first then board, you'll find a dozen links that will come up.
There are
Definitely.
tons on Pinterest. I know that
I
too.
was going to say Pinterest, absolutely, absolutely. And even clicking on Google Images, right? And then the first then board, you can print one right from the images. So, but I'll definitely,
Their board maker has templates also. And is the Be Visual a phone app? Do you know? I believe it's phone and tablet.
yes, it is. It's for phone and tablet. So all of the ones that we've shown on there, right, are for phone and tablet. Mhm.
Someone had a question if, well, there's two. The first one is, do you have any suggestions for potty training? And then the second one is, has anyone run into resistance from families when suggesting self-determination?
Well, if it's okay, I'll address the first one, and then Vicki, you could jump if you'll jump. And so potty training as a teacher is something I did all of the time at different levels. And so one of the great things that that Lauren and Carol mentioned last week, and if you weren't on the call, was a website called Do to Learn. And so it's DO number 2 and then learn. I'm sure Stacy will put that in the chat and we'll make sure you get that as well. So when I was a teacher, I thought I need a schedule for this. So I took the icons from Do to Learn and I actually made a huge poster on the back of my bathroom door. And we had a schedule of toileting. So again, what's great about visuals is you can make a schedule and a routine for everything that you need to teach your child. And so that's one of the things that I would recommend is to have. I actually worked with one of the parents in their home to have a schedule that looked like the one at school. And they also, as we were transitioning into wearing underwear, we actually put on a calendar the days that the child would wear the underwear and then they would mark them off. So there's many, many great ideas. That's just one that I used that helped. Just stick with it. You know, toilet training takes a while, a long time. And so don't get discouraged, but routines and visuals definitely help with that. And that's my.
How about reinforcement?
Oh yeah, yes. Go ahead, Vicki. Yeah.
No, it's just like reinforcement is the major part there.
Right. Thank you. And you're exactly right. Right. Once you do that, right, then find what that reinforcing thing is. Absolutely.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is exactly. I would even go as far as the food on that one, even though.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And there you go. Absolutely.
And Teresa and Vicki, I also posted Vanderbilt has like a potty training resource site where it's a step-by-step
Thank you.
process to consider, like if you want to know how long to put your child on the potty.
Yeah.
The whole concept too is to make the bathroom fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? So maybe sometimes they only get their favorite books when they're sitting on the potty, but that's a good resource if you want a step-by-step guide just for some things to think about. It's already broken down for you. So I'll put that in the chat as well.
Yeah, thanks, Taryn. And there's a great book and I was trying to look on my shelf. I don't see it at the moment. I probably lend it out to somebody. But there's a great book too on potty training for individuals with autism spectrum disorder that I use, because, you know, some of those issues that we come back is where is what is coming out of my body, where is it going? So to actually take a picture, right? Do to Learn has those pictures of the excrements in the toilet so they can see, right? It's the anxiety of where's it going, and that sort of thing. So there's a whole thing around toileting, but definitely using those visual supports and like Vicki said, the reinforcement is key. And thanks, Taryn, for your resources as well. And then the question about self-determination.
I was gonna say, somebody posted in the chat that hang in there. I finally got it by the time my son was 9 years old. Yeah. You know, he finally became potty trained. So
absolutely, and I would say
hang in there.
Yeah, and I would say never give up either, because, you know, this is such an important life skill to have. It really affects everything. It affects our independence. It affects our selves in the job work world. Some of our folks can't get a job in the community because they aren't toilet trained, and so it's a human right, and it's our right to help them get that to have that. And, having been a middle school teacher for a long time as well, I definitely had folks that I worked with that we took on the potty training. And again, it's just for their own dignity, respect, and their right that we help them do that and be as independent as possible. So, Vicki, do you want to address this? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Carol mentioned that Maria Wheeler is the author on potty training for individuals with ASD. That's a great book.
Yes, that's the one thank you, Carol. That's the one I was thinking. Thank you. Yeah. Vicki, do you want to address self-determination?
Yeah, so the other piece was self-determination. When I talk about self-determination, I kind of laugh thinking about the last thing a high school principal wants is a bunch of adolescent kids with or without disabilities really feeling self-determined. But I think the question was really to family members. Do we have issues with family members really being concerned about self-determination? And I really haven't had that experience. Breaking down self-determination, that it's a positive thing for the family member as well as the individual.
And I appreciate that, Vicki. I think, I think I have had that experience, and I think some of the great things we're doing even statewide, like the I'm Determined project, really helps us open up the doors for people with varying abilities and helping other family members and just people that work with them understand, again, that it's our human right to have to be self-determined, all of the components that go with it, which isn't just self-advocacy. It's all the things that we've been talking today with problem solving and choice making. And I think that what we have to help family members and others understand, and some of these videos that are on the I'm Determined site are a great way to help open up that discussion, is understanding how the person feels and why they want to be toilet trained, and why they want to go out in the community and hang out with a friend. What is in it for them? What's their motivation? What keeps them going? And that's an important piece for me about self-determination, is knowing from the other person's point of view, what keeps you going every day, and how do we keep doing that, and how do we keep supporting you and being able to tell others that. So I don't know if that helps or not, but
there's another question. How do I transition my son from doing the virtual learning from 8:15 to 2:50, but has a lot of free time in the middle? He likes to jump on the tech immediately for 6 to 8 hours. I believe this time is too long. How do I use transition using schedules to help him adjust? Great question.
I mean, I know for myself, just sitting in front of the computer, I have to get up and just walk around the house or walk outside and just get smacked in the face with some fresh air, just doing something physical to kind of transition from one activity to another activity so I can refocus.
And I
think it's too long to be looking at a screen.
And I think, Vicki, you make a good point, and that's where I think, okay, so Vicki's learned to do that independently, but to maybe assist with that, maybe that's where, right, those first then boards come in, right, and that talking to them about first then next, and again, the timers. How much time am I going to spend doing this activity, and helping them with that, learning that time management piece. Is really important. And again, like Vicki said, what works for you? Do I need to go out for a walk and take a break? Again, that's part of self-determination, knowing what works for me and what I need in order to continue to self-regulate and get back on track. So it takes some time, but I think those strategies really help out.
Our colleague Lisa Holland made a really great comment here. Remember, becoming self-directed is a lifelong process that takes time and practice. We have to teach the child good components of self-determination, how to make good choices, and how to advocate for your needs.
Thank you, friend. Yep, nobody knows better than our friend Lisa Holland. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Thank you.
A lot of great comments. Thanking you both for a wonderful presentation. Consistency, of course, with schedules, with potty training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other questions?
We don't want to forget the polling question.
Yes, thank you, Vicki. I was just going to do that. So I'm going to launch the poll. We would just love to know, again, do you find this useful? And thank you again for attending. We have several lunch and learns coming up. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. And if you don't mind answering for that for us, we appreciate that. And again, next week we have Dr. Carol Shaw again, so we don't want to miss that, and our colleague Noelle Woolard. And this is going to be awesome, home activities to learning experiences. So again, that's next Thursday, May 14th from 12 to 1. And here's a registration link, but also the registration for each of these now is on our website, vcuautismcenter.org. If you need any assistance, just email our center and we'll be happy to assist you.
And look around the site. It's just full of other resources and information there.
Yeah, and we are a free resource. Sometimes I still say the word free because not everyone knows we are free. So yeah, please get on our website. We have webcasts. You can go to archived webcasts. We have some great national, international, and statewide folks that have done things for us. We have awesome how-to videos. So if you want to learn more about reinforcement that we talked about here, we have some great 5-minute videos on reinforcement and just other evidence-based practices in autism that we talk about. So yeah, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to help you around the website as well.
And we appreciate so much Virginia Department of Education for providing this whole structure so we can do these series.
Yeah, and we are going to continue it. So please sign up and if you have some needs, let us know because we'd love to be able to help you with that.
There's one other question. I know that University of Virginia is doing telehealth assessments for autism. Is anyone in Richmond doing that? Do not know the answer to that.
Yeah, I
I do
don't.
not know the answer to that.
Yeah. Anything else?
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Look forward to talking to everybody maybe next week.
Yeah, appreciate your time. Thank you for everyone who attended. And
Thanks for your interest.
yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.